Welcome. So good to be with you on this Wednesday as we get together for a little midweek Bible study and devotional time. And I'm so glad you've taken some time out of your day, out of your week to join us to dig into God's word and hopefully be uplifted and encouraged by what he has to say to us. I heard a story about a guy, his name was Wu Chen. He was a man who lived in China. And Wu Chen was not a very trusting man, at least, especially when it came to his money. And so instead of maybe investing his money, his life savings into whatever long term stocks or long term investments he could, or maybe just even doing something simple like putting it into savings or into a bank account, Chin instead chose to take his money and literally bury it in the ground. He took all of his money, all of his savings from his work as a fisherman, plus a pension payment he had received, and put the money in, of all things, a plastic bag. And then he buried that bag near his home in the ground in the Sichuan province of China. Several years later, fast forward 5 years later, Chin digs up the bag. And unfortunately for him, he discovered his error. The bag he used wasn't airtight, moisture had gotten in, and most of the cash was rotten. Fortunately for this distraught fisherman, the previously untrustworthy, at least to him, local bank was willing to, good on them, willing to exchange about half the bills or at least some of what was distinguishable for usable ones. So it didn't work out really well, but at least was able to salvage some things, I guess, in the end. But the story reminds me of something that Jesus taught his followers when he says this in Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 21. He says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth." Certainly burying them probably wouldn't be a good idea either. Where, as he goes on to say, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But however, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Notice that Jesus isn't just talking about how to keep our money safe, right? He's talking about how to keep our hearts safe. Where your treasure is, sometimes we get it backwards, right? We think where our money is, where our heart is, there our treasure will be. And Jesus actually reverses it around. He says, where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be also. The two are linked together. And so instead of burying our money in the ground, Jesus says you ought to be storing up treasure in heaven. So how do we do that? Well, there's a lot of ways, but I think the Apostle Paul has a good explanation of this in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 through 19. Here's what he writes. He said, "Command those who are rich in this present world." By the way, for most of us, I would say 90.9% of you listening to me right now, we are rich. If you live here in America, you are rich by the world's standards. No matter how little or much you have compared to a lot of people in the world, you are rich. And so Paul says, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain. We know that to be true, right? But however, to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, Paul says, to be rich in good deeds and to be generous and willing to share. And in this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. First, let me point out that Paul never says it's wrong to be rich. Jesus doesn't say that either. Now, it does create some more issues the more money that we have, but Jesus nor Paul, the Bible does not tell us that it's wrong for us to be rich or to have things in and of themselves. But when it comes to money and our material possessions, regardless of how much or how little we have, Paul does say if you want to be truly rich and you want to be good at being rich, it's not that hard, really. You put your hope in God and entrust in His provision. And with what He's given you, you do good, be rich in good deeds, be generous, and be willing to share. And Paul says, in that way, we're laying up treasure that no one can steal and nothing can destroy. And that's where true riches and true life are truly found. Hope you have a blessed day. God bless.